Hi folks, I'm Shamus from Outdoors Inspiration. This is Petra, my German Shepherd, and this is Dartmoor Prison. And this is Dartmoor Prison Quarry. This is where convicts were sent to hard labour, to break rocks and get some outdoor healthy exercise, I suppose. But that's not what we're here for. We're off for a wild camp, so it's getting a bit blowy, low on light, and a tad cold tonight as well. So we're going to press on. We'll catch up with you in a little while. Come on, Petra, onwards and upwards. Up, 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 up. Good girl. Good girl. Come on then. This is the Hilleberg Soulo, and some people have said they've had issues with getting these top clips into the poles. So on the Hilleberg Facebook group, Petra Hilleberg was kind enough to answer, say this is how we do it. We just press down on the pole and bring the clip up to meet the pole. Down on the pole, quick as this. So there's 60-mile-an-hour winds forecast, and I want to make sure things are as robust as possible. So tonight I've used some big sky tube stakes in here. They're much longer than the standard Hilleberg stakes, and just over the tags of those I'm going to dig in here, put some tension on there, and we're just going to back stake that in there. Well, that isn't so much for structural stability, but it maintains the guy lines over the top of the original stake, but we have got the additional reinforcement there from the second stake. You could come back with a longer tail and tension it, but this should be quite sufficient. I'm going to double guy on the windward side as well. I bought some pre-prepared guys with line locks, some Alp kit tiny carabiners here, and I'm just going to splice into the main support for the tent here. There. Okay, so now I've got an additional guy line, and this one's going in with a Y stake. I'm not particularly fond of Y stakes. They can chew up guy lines for a pastime, but it'll be very supportive for tonight. Come on then, good girl. My mate Mike Bright, and he's over there somewhere on King's Tor. I'm going to see if we can see his light. Come on, Petra, let's test this head torch. I don't know if you can see that. Mike Bright of Cornish Knives and Camping. In your bed. In you go. Well, I think Petra's settled in again. I'm not quite sure what the what the purpose of the exercise with the torches was, but if you watch Mike's video, Cornish Knives and Camping, you might see how bright that particular head torch was. And the head torch I was using was a new one to me, the Petzl Neo Plus. Now, perhaps it's pronounced. And I haven't bought this because of the power, albeit maximum boost is at about 750 lumens. That isn't the reason why I bought this head torch. I got it because I'm fed up of paying for batteries and replacing batteries in my head torches. It's not a cheap head torch, but the batteries over the winter are going to cost me an awful lot of money. But I don't want to find from my winter wild camps that I'm losing light because my batteries are gone, or I've got to replace batteries, and I've got to constantly think about whether the batteries are suitable or not. How long ago did I replace them? This is rechargeable. So that makes sense, number one. Number two is that it's a reactive head torch. So the first setting there is on its lowest setting and it's reactive. So the moment it comes into contact with more light, I know it's probably it's probably flaring into the lens right now. But the moment that it sees reflective light coming back, it dims. If I shine this outside, it'll bloom up again. It has another setting, so it'll come on with more power, and if I hold it down for 2 seconds, this will now lock it in position. So that's its lowest setting, and that's its absolute brightest setting. But I'm not going to use it for that. So the reason I want this head torch for the winter is really for its lower settings. Whilst I'm sat here in the tent, if I need a head torch, it's going to manage the light well enough for me. It's not going to overpower it. It's not going to run the battery down. I can recharge it when I get home, and should I need to navigate out of somewhere during the hours of darkness, I know that this head torch will also deliver enough power to see me out safely and see any hazards that are in my way. Oh, that hot chocolate's nice. What's with the long face? So, I went past Dartmoor Prison this evening and filmed it to add to this wild camp story. Really, I always try to add a little bit of history to one of my wild camps. Dartmoor Prison was the brainchild of a guy called Sir Thomas Tyrwhitt. Sir Thomas Tyrwhitt was great friends with the Prince of Wales, who owns a lot of land here on Dartmoor. And his initial plan was to tame the wild moorland and turn it into arable farming land. And that didn't quite pan out the way he saw it, because it's wet, boggy, full of peat and rocks and not much else. But we were, in the early part of the 19th century, at war with France in the Napoleonic Wars. Many prisoners of war were being held in what were becoming ever-cramped conditions in prison hulks, ships effectively, in Plymouth. So Sir Thomas Tyrwhitt hatched a plan to build Dartmoor Prison. Now, the original plan was that those hulks, or those prisoners, could be transported up the River Tavy, quite close to Dartmoor, where the prison was. That too turned out to be quite hopeful on the part of Sir Thomas Tyrwhitt. I don't think this guy did his homework, actually. The Tavy certainly isn't navigable by boat, coming up it anyway. So eventually, when Dartmoor Prison was completed, the prisoners of war were marched from Plymouth across Dartmoor in the cold of winter and housed there. There were up to 6,000 prisoners at one point in that prison, which now only houses about 600. Simultaneously, or towards the end of the Napoleonic War, we were also at war with America. And we started to house American prisoners of war at Dartmoor Prison as well. Bit by bit, French prisoners of war started to be repatriated, and the American prisoners remained there. And after the signing of the Treaty of Ghent, it was agreed that both sides would start to repatriate their prisoners of war. Now, that treaty was signed in late 1814, I think December, and it wasn't enacted until the early part of 1815. And naturally, sensing their freedom and liberty, the American prisoners of war started to rebel against the system because they were being held in quite strict conditions. And the prisoners started getting uppity, and one thing led to another and led to another, and there was a revolt in the prison from these prisoners who were rightfully meant to be repatriated anytime soon. Under orders, the soldiers, the guards at the prison, opened fire on those prisoners. 60 were wounded and 6 were killed dead outright. It's now known as the Dartmoor Massacre. There are graveyards at the back of the prison for the French prisoners of war and the American prisoners who died there as well. Prisoners of note who've stayed at Dartmoor Prison, people like Mad Axeman Frank Mitchell. It's got to really mean something, hasn't it, if you're known posthumously as Mad Anything. But the Mad Axeman, oh my goodness, he was sprung from there and escaped. The Cray twins actually visited him there in disguise, and he was spirited away from Dartmoor Prison. There was a great manhunt to try and find him, and he was never found again. It's believed that he was too hot to handle. When he got back to London, he was just too wild, and he disappeared, shall we say. There have been political prisoners held there as well. The Taoiseach of Ireland, Eamon de Valera, was also held at Dartmoor Prison. Right, so it's promising to be quite windy overnight. So I'm just having a final check of all my pegging and guys. So that's it, the wind and rain starting now. The capabilities of this tent are quite incredible, really. It can withstand anything that the weather's going to throw at us overnight. So by double guying on the windward side and double pegging all of the guys, I'm confident that this tent will be fine. The actual structure of the tent, the textiles and the stitching, well, that I trust to Hilleberg. They're an expert tent maker. The rest is down to me, really, and I've got to make sure that it's pitched well. Then I can get my head down tonight, listen to the wind rattling, listen to the rain pouring, and sleep well, knowing that I've checked everything and that the guys and the pegs are as secure as they're going to be. It'll be a good night's sleep. Well, that's a bit miserable, isn't it? visibility is pretty limited. It's blowing with rain out there. The wind hasn't abated, and it's par for the course. I guess that's what was on the forecast. I think what we'll do this morning is have a slow breakfast, pack everything up, wait for a lull and get the tent down, and then begin walking out of here. That should be fun. So the plan really was to get everything down inside the tent. Everything's packed away, so I'm just ready to rock and roll and go. Visibility's coming and going, so I've set a compass on the bearing that I want to go on roughly to get me out of here. So if it craps out completely, I've got a line to walk on. And the plan is to get the tent down as fast as possible and as safely as possible. Let's see how that pans out. Petra's actually better at crossing a cattle grid than I am. Well done, good girl. Come on in. This is the transmitter site on the top of North Hessery Tor. And I think it's from here we'll say our goodbyes. I thought the weather was clearing there for a moment, but no. At least the rain stopped. It's just driving cloud and mist. If you like the video, please give us a thumbs up, comment. I like getting back to comments. And please, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you like what we're doing, there's a button down there somewhere. I'd be very flattered if you followed our channel. From both Petra and I, stay safe, take care, look after one another. Cheers, folks. Come on then, Petra. Onwards and upwards.